Good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us here today at the AOSIS Pavilion. My name is Emily McLone, and I am the director of Peaceboat US, an international organization working to promote peace and sustainability around the world. It is our great pleasure to be here today at the AOSIS Pavilion during COP26, the United Nations Climate Change Conference, highlighting the role of youth leaders from small island developing states or large ocean nations, together with our partners from Blue Planet Alliance, Peaceboat, and the permanent representatives of Palau, who are here with us, joining us here today. And we're just so excited to also highlight Sustainable Ocean Alliance, who is leading the way with youth leaders and providing opportunities for so many young people around the world and to find ocean solutions. So thank you all for being here. Thank you. It's our great pleasure to start today's presentation, first introducing a little bit about our organization. Peaceboat is an international NGO sailing the world for more than 38 years, and it was founded in 1983 by university students who are passionate about finding solutions not only for our oceans, but also working on different issues such as human rights, nuclear disarmament, and sustainable development, and equality for all. This is our ship, which sails as a flagship for the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals with the logo on the hull of the ship, so that every time we pull into port, we are raising awareness for the SDGs. Peaceboat travels to more than 20 countries every 3 months, engaging with coastal communities, and really sees the effects of climate change and ocean degradation when we're visiting so many communities who are on the front lines of climate change. We often travel to the northern hemisphere. You can see the red line here, going through the Mediterranean and up to the Baltic region. Once a year, we take a more of a central route across through the Suez Canal and then the Panama Canal into Central America. And then once a year, we also travel to the southern hemisphere, visiting countries all the way through the southeast of Asia and to South Africa, over to Brazil, Argentina, and Chile, sailing through the fjords of Patagonia. Peaceboat carries with it the message of peace and sustainability because we truly believe that it takes civil society working together with government partners, youth, and advocates from around the world to achieve all of the SDGs. We have been sailing for more than 38 years as an NGO and also a social business. And we also carry with us on board the 2017 Nobel Peace Prize as part of the International Steering Committee of ICAN, which is the international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons. And we received this Nobel Peace Prize together with our partners who are working on nuclear disarmament, sharing the testimonies of the survivors from Hiroshima and Nagasaki to work towards a more sustainable and nuclear-free future for all. We have traveled to more than 100 ports in more than 80 countries during these 38 years. Peaceboat also believes in socially and environmentally responsible tourism. That means that travel in itself can be a tool for positive social and political change. So we really hope to work with the communities that we visit to share their messages and their hope for a more sustainable future and to highlight their incredible projects in all of the coastal communities that we visit. As I mentioned, we sail with the SDGs logo on the hull of the ship, and we do actually work on all 17 of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. We've also created a scholarship for young people ages 18 to 30 years old to travel with us and share best practices and also challenges and find solutions together for the SDGs. So with that, I would like to start with a short video introducing Peaceboat's work for the Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you. I hope that gave a brief overview of our work for the UN Sustainable Development Goals and a little bit of an introduction to Peaceboat's advocacy for the SDGs. Part of our work as an educational organization is also inviting guest speakers to come on board during our global voyages and to share their expertise. So for example, we have here an example of Cristiana Figueres, who was one of the guest speakers for our Ocean and Climate Youth Ambassador program, working with youth from small island developing states to share her work because she was very instrumental in the Paris agreements and working towards climate action. We have here also two of the SDGs that really embody the messages we're talking about today, which is SDG 4 for quality education and SDG 14 for life below water, as we are always sailing on the open seas. And that brings me to our Ocean and Climate Youth Ambassador program, which is really what we're highlighting here today in the AOSIS Pavilion with the Alliance of Small Island States. We've had so many inspiring young people come on board and share their stories with us, working for the Sustainable Development Goals in their home communities and really leading with passion and also helping to raise awareness not only in their home communities but also sharing their stories with government leaders and advocates and those who they meet with us around the world. So I'd like to take us now to one of the first island nations that we're going to be speaking about today, which is Palau. Palau has hundreds of islands, and so whenever we sail into Palau, we have this beautiful view of the blue and green lush forests on the island states. And one of the amazing projects that Palau has started is the Palau Pledge, which I find personally very inspiring. And this is a request to everyone who is visiting Palau to tread lightly and to think about the environment first before entering Palau. So everyone that enters Palau now signs this pledge, and it was our honor to sign it on board the Peace Boat in March of 2018. And wouldn't it be amazing to have the Palau Pledge in every country around the world? If we could think about what it would be like to request those visitors, even all of us who are here now in Scotland, to think about if we had to sign something like this before we came, that we would think about the environment first and to really respect the local communities. So we're really proud to be a part of this, of the Palau Pledge, and also to be here with Charlene Mersai, who is going to speak with us about Palau and their work for climate action, and also the upcoming Our Ocean Conference in February. So please give her a warm welcome. Welcome, Charlene.
Thank you, Emily. Can you hear me? Oh, is that better? Hi. I'd like to keep this very short and brief. We're here at the COP trying to have influence in the global decisions that impact our small island states. What I'd like to share with you is the significance of one of the small island states and how it's doing work underground as well as doing its part for the global impact. More specifically, I'd just like to highlight that Palau is the first small island state to host our ocean conference. We will be hosting our ocean conference, the 7th Ocean Conference next year, February 16th to 17th. The significance of this particular event for us, especially small island states, is that it's our chance to highlight our particular issues at this conference. At the Palau Ocean Conference next year, there are two things that I think I need to emphasize in this event. First is that it's our chance to raise a Pacific voice. It's our chance to highlight what is happening underground in our islands with climate change, including sea level rise, ocean acidification, and severe weather events. The second point I'd like to highlight is, although we're very proud to be hosting this event next year, we recognize that we're just one of the waves that are needed for the big impact. The previous conferences have resulted in over 1,000 commitments, almost $200 billion, and protects 6 million square miles of ocean space. We hope that our conference will continue to add on to those waves of positive impacts. So please, we welcome everyone to Palau, February 16th to 17th next year. Thank you very much, and I'll be here for questions later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlene. It is such a pleasure to have you join us today, and we are all looking forward to participating in the Palau's Our Ocean Conference. Peace Boat, as a supporting organization along with Blue Planet Alliance and Sustainable Ocean Alliance, would like to bring our youth from the small island developing states to participate in the conference and build that network, as it is so important, more today than it ever has been, to conserve our oceans, to raise awareness, and to prevent the further effects of climate change on coastal communities. We know that this COP in particular has not been as inclusive as we would hope it to be. It's really difficult for everyone to travel with the current circumstances, and especially for those young people from small island developing states to be here today. So we're just so grateful for all of the partners that we have here representing various nations, and that we look forward to working together towards this conference. And to start the next section, I would like to share a short 6-minute video of our Ocean and Climate Youth Ambassadors program before I introduce our youth speakers, so you can learn a little bit more about their programs that they're working on, and also the Peace Boat's Ocean and Climate Youth Ambassador program on board the ship.
My name is Genevieve Chipa, and I'm from Fiji. Peace Boat has introduced the Ocean and Climate Youth Ambassador Program, which is a program that brings together youth from small island developing states to come together on a 3-week journey, share their stories about climate change and ocean degradation.
Peace Boat travels all over the world to try to achieve the global goals. The Ocean and Climate Youth Ambassador Program specifically focuses on goals 13 and 14, which are climate action and life below water.
We are here for the same thing, with a common goal: to raise our voices, to share our knowledge, and to speak up for what we think is right.
All of the ambassadors are from small island states which are affected by climate change. We physically see it in our islands. Peace Boat is bringing us together to try and find solutions and to get our stories told, so that in the future we can have change.
On this voyage, we are visiting ports in Stockholm, Denmark, Bergen, Reykjavik, Halifax, and New York. We started using the Talanoa dialogue in Stockholm when we began the program. Talanoa is a concept in Fiji and the Pacific, which means an inclusive and participatory dialogue. It's meant to be a very positive framing of an issue and meant to focus on solutions and how we can progress to make a better world. It is incredibly important to have more voices heard, because different people could have different solutions, and solutions that we might not know about.
Climate change is a worldwide discussion. It is something that everyone has to be part of. So obviously it is people, and young people just as the ambassadors, but it's also NGOs, it's also businesses, it's also governmental organizations.
With the Paris Agreement that was adopted in 2015 and the SDGs, we have an international framework, universal agreements that all governments around the world have decided to move forward to work towards a sustainable development that also protect the planet, but also has a focus on the well-being of people. But at the end of the day, it is a social transformation. This training program is about empowering people to not only be aware about the problem, but to lead the solution.
Having Adriana here from the UNFCCC was a really good partnership. It was a bridge between the information that comes from the UN and us, the ambassadors, the people who are trying to create change.
Meeting different kinds of activists that are actually doing what they believe is right, it felt really inspiring, because now I know how it looks like to actually do these things.
really good chance to give voices to a younger generation where we believe the future is ours, and we share the same goal, and we share the same problems, and we share the same passion for our survival.
Hello, my name is Frances from Seychelles, and all the youth ambassadors have gathered here at the United Nations to talk about the program on Peace Board and what we have learned, and we're happy to contribute to the high-level political forum.
Since we live on the island, we see the impact. I think the youth should be given more opportunities. Most of the time when there's conference, it's usually the ministers, the president that goes, but we don't have that platform to speak out. And I think that is very important.
It's been a very inspiring journey for us. We didn't know each other, and now we've been like families to each other. If that can happen, I hope that it transcends throughout our journey when we go back home and for the rest of our lives.
Something new for me, really, really new. I have to take some actions. I'm pledging I will do something in my country.
Let's give a round of applause for the filmmaker, Ryan Call from New York City. This film always brings me so much inspiration, seeing the young people that have traveled with us on the Peace Boat, and brings back lots of great memories, but also gives me hope for the future, that these are the youth that will be making the changes that we need for our climate and to conserve our oceans. So I'd like to start by introducing our first youth who is from Montserrat, Ashneil Jeffers. He was in our 2019 Ocean and Climate Youth Ambassador Program, and he's going to share a little bit about his experience and also, maybe talk a little bit about what's happening here at COP and what he's doing for the future. So please give a warm welcome for Ashneil.
Okay. Thank you for having me. My name is Ashneil Jeffers. I'm 23 from Montserrat in the Caribbean, very small island. We only have about 4,500 people. And honestly, I never expected to be on Peace Boat in the first place, but somehow I managed to go and get on it through some connections. And yeah, honestly, when you saw that video, it's just like that. I was on the one after that, I think. And that one, the kind of family that you made, the kind of experiences that you had, and just the presentations and that you had to do, and the places when you stop at them, instead of just going on a regular cruise ship tour, you went to meet ministers or you went to meet professors and so on, and then you talked about your island and you shared stories and you made connections. You built real connections, and I really appreciated that about the Ocean and Climate Youth Ambassador Program. In terms of what I'm doing in COP, well, I'm representing my island. I'm not really even sure if anybody else is from Montserrat in COP right now, but I'm definitely trying to raise awareness about my island and just seeing how far we can get in terms of projects and things to be done. Because, I mean, at things like COP, they don't really take small island states, large ocean nations seriously. I mean, they make their statements in the public, but then in the actual negotiations, which they don't really want you to go and see, that's when they do what they actually have to go and do. And I really feel like for our small islands, we really have to just work together and work with whoever is actually willing to work with us and actually build real projects, because this isn't just about reducing carbon emissions. It's not even about reducing our carbon emissions. It's really about building up adaptation, building up resilience measures, because at this point in the cycle, we're kind of over the tipping point. So I really feel like what we need to go and do is brace for the impact of small islands, and I really appreciate being here at the COP. I mean, as you can see, I met some really amazing people. Brandon isn't there, but he was there on the boat, and gave some really nice chats and so on. And yeah, I mean, I just really appreciate everything that Peace Boat has done for having me here, and as well as just being here to just talk to all of you, and yeah, I hope I could see some of you in Montserrat. If you ever do, just go by the ice cream shop and just ask for me. Don't worry, it's a small island, so they'll know me. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ashneil, and it's been such a pleasure working with you today. He joined us at our press conference this morning, also with the ambassador of the Permanent Mission of Palau, and together with various partners. And we got to meet also the First Secretary of Scotland, Nicole Sturgeon, the other day. And there's so many partners that we've been working with, and it's been really incredible to see the voice of young people being shared here at COP. So we hope that Peace Boat can provide a space and a platform on this global stage for all of our young leaders to continue their advocacy work for ocean and climate action. So thank you for being with us, to all of you who are here today. And as Ashneil mentioned, we also have with us Brandon Levy, who is from the Sustainable Ocean Alliance, who was one of our guest speakers on board the Peace Boat. We always invite experts in the field, as well as various leaders from different NGOs and organizations that are really helping to support these youth leaders so that they can build those connections and networks for their future. So with that, I would like to invite Brandon Levy to the stage. Please give him a warm welcome. Thank you.
Thank you all. Let me adjust this mic a little bit. I'm very tall. It's great hearing from you, Ash and Emily, and from the Environmental Minister of Palau. And it's wonderful to be with you all here today. So today I will tell you a bit more about Sustainable Ocean Alliance, about the work we do, particularly from the tilt of small island developing states or large ocean states, and how our variety of programs serve these individuals worldwide. We have a clicker up here? Oh, perfect. So first we must acknowledge where we're at right now. For those of us that are in Glasgow, these realities are quite obvious. The ocean is in a state of rapid decline. It's been our biggest ally against the fight for climate change, absorbing 93% of excess carbon since 1980, provides us with protein and oxygen and water. However, due to rampant industry, due to overconsumption, and of course greenhouse gases, we find ourselves with an ocean that's no longer able to generate to meet our needs. And we see a rising youth movement. We see Fridays for Future, Extinction Rebellion. We see youth with a certain consciousness of the predicament that we are now in that may not be shared by their parents or grandparents, or by the politicians that are in rooms just over there or over there. However, we at SOA are doing what we can to capitalize on these upswell of young environmentalists who understand that there's a problem and also know that they have the ingenuity, the resources, and the determination to make the future that they want to live in a reality. So SOA was started by one of these youth, Daniela Fernandez, who is my boss and the CEO of Sustainable Ocean Alliance, when she was just 19 years old. Back in 2014, she was a freshman at Georgetown University and got invited to attend an event similar to COP at the UN. And two observations came to her through that particular experience. One, she was the only young person in the room. Two, the entire dialogue was about the problems. Deoxygenation, plastic pollution, and on and on. We all know them all too well. So Daniela sought to create a program that could be focused on the solutions to these problems and give youth from all over the world a platform, a stage to be heard and for their projects to be advanced. And we do that through two primary programs, our Ocean Leadership Program and our Ocean Solutions Accelerator. I'll go into the leadership program more in a bit, and the Ocean Solutions Accelerator I'll touch on briefly now is a program geared towards entrepreneurs, startups that are tackling ocean challenges through innovative technologies and business models. And we've now supported these startups from all over the world who are quite innovative in what they're doing. We also have an additional program called the Youth Policy Advisory Council, chaired by Mark Haver, who's actually in the audience here today, as well as other, which features other youth from Haiti, Seychelles, Cook Island, and beyond. They have created incredible initiatives like the Global Blue New Deal and have continued to be on the front lines of our campaign against deep sea mining. So our impact to date, thank you, is that we've been able to accelerate 44 of these startups through that accelerator program I just mentioned. We've built a youth movement in over 165 countries, and this encompasses almost all of the 50-plus small island developing states, which we're very proud of. And we continue to try to serve these individuals through grant funding and beyond, which I'll go into more now. So the Ocean Leadership Program was built to serve this expanding, ever-expanding global community of young leaders. Young leaders are between 18 and 35 years of age, and they hail from over 165 countries. They realize the threats we face and are taking bold actions. And the way we organize this community, next slide please, is through our on a regional level, on a sub-regional or national level, and on a sub-national level. And our regional reps or regional leads are the ones that are actually building the community on the ground. This isn't the case of SOA going into a new territory. We're based in San Francisco. We're not trying to export our model anywhere. We're looking towards our youth to build a decentralized movement and speak to the people in their communities and build those communities themselves and just empower them to do that with all the resources and mentorship that we could provide. So these are some of the regional leads we have in the Pacific Islands, in Southeast Asia, in Portuguese-speaking countries, in Sub-Saharan Africa, and Latin America. And I'm happy to announce that we just hired our lead for the Caribbean islands, Khadijah Stewart, who is a former Peace Boat Ocean and Climate and Youth Ambassador. Again, a bit more about how our network is structured on the 4 different levels. And a bit about our communities. You could see our Latin America community now has over 2,000 members, and we're very excited to start growing our Caribbean and small island developing states community more intentionally. Our hubs are now in 45 countries. We have 72 hubs that are doing incredible work. And today I'm happy to announce once more that we've added hubs in the Solomon Islands, in Vanuatu, and a Caribbean-wide SOA hub. Case study that I can provide of what a hub does, SOA Japan. This was actually started by 2 members of Peace Boat staff who, after meeting them on board, went back to Japan and created an entire organization to be a pivotal epicenter within the country where youth can come together and learn about the problems facing the ocean, but also ways to get involved in the solution. So they've hosted different webinars, beach cleanups, and beyond. Our next case study is the Pacific Islands. In 2020, the Pacific Islands first hosted a Youth Ocean Leadership Conference at the University of South Pacific in Suva, Fiji, and continue to do amazing work. They've been leading the way on our campaign against deep seabed mining as well, along with our youth in the Cook Islands and Seychelles, who have produced documentary films on this issue as well. And microgrants. I've mentioned that SOA is able to not just support these youth with mentorship and with curriculum, but also with money. And we feel this is really important. So we have now been able to raise $400,000 that of that, about half has gone out to 150 projects in 65 countries. Our focus is always going to be on small island developing states and least developed countries. And this is the instrument in which we provide grants between $1,000 and $4,000 to youth that are taking on incredible projects. A bit more about what these projects are. Carbon Ethics is a project in Indonesia. They've built a marketplace for blue carbon offsets, and they are really helping provide funding for seaweed farming, mangrove restorations, and beyond. And here's Khadijah Stewart once again, also a microgrant awardee. Khadijah has launched a very successful podcast called People Taking Action, in which she's able to interview young leaders, small island developing state youth who are doing amazing, amazing projects. And we're happy now to be working more closely with Khadijah. So what can you do next? How can you get involved? Well, I would encourage you to go on to soalliance.org and apply to be a young ocean leader. If you're between the ages of 18 and 35 years of age, there's also other ways you can support if you are beyond that age or younger than that age. So please go on, you'll learn all about that. I encourage you all to apply for grant funding for your projects. We are here to serve, and I appreciate your attention here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brandon. And it's with our deepest gratitude that we have you here with us, joining us at COP26 as part of our Peace Boat larger network and our delegation here. And one of the reasons I really enjoy working with Brandon and SOA in general is because they provide these opportunities for youth. They provide funding and solutions and networks and partnership building. I've seen so many of our youth join SOA programs and come out with such an incredible network. And Khadijah is just one example, but there's so many other youth as well. Even Mark Haver, who's here today, we met at the Our Ocean Conference in Norway, for example. And now he's here at COP with us as part of our delegation. And it's just really exciting to see our partnerships continue to build on each other, to support each other. And this is really what NGOs should be doing, always working together and helping to build each other up. So thank you so much, Brandon, for being here, and Mark as well. And I just hope that all of the youth who are here today will connect with them and meet and network after this event and learn more about their projects and apply for those microgrants. They are accessible, they are here for you, and they can help you scale up your projects to make a positive impact for our oceans. And with that, I would like to go to our next youth leader, Kim Allen, who is from Papua New Guinea. And I've had the pleasure of visiting Papua New Guinea on board the Peace Boat, and it's such an incredible place to visit, not only for the people and the culture, but also for the richness of the biodiversity and really what they have to offer our oceans for solutions. So Kim, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the stage.
Thank you so much, Emily and Peace Boat for having me, and also Peace Boat and SOA for sharing the incredible work that has been done within the youth space, and to Palau for showing us the policy level where young people can participate. It's a great experience. Well, my name is Kim Allen. I'm from Papua New Guinea. We share the border with Indonesia. I will share with you the experience and what is it about climate change that we are all here. Papua New Guinea has 60% of the population within the youth. That's approximately 8.4 million. So 60% of that are young people. And we have the third largest rainforest in the world. And we host 6% of the world's biodiversity. And interestingly, PNG and even the Pacific region, we are the most region that is prone to natural disasters, and of course with the impacts of climate change. So this is a picture of once upon a time in 2019, I was in the comfort of Port Moresby in the city, just like a building not as big as this, but working in the office. I received a call, and these 6 to 8 years kids, elementary kids, they were in the classroom, and there was a high king tides that came in and chased the students literally out of the classroom. They have to run to higher ground for their lives. That triggered my passion, and so I started to look for ways to help these communities. Climate impacts in the Pacific, which includes Papua New Guinea and the small island developing states. You don't need science to tell you that. You see it, reality happening. You see coastal erosion. You see cyclones happening every now and then. And it's seasonal, as I speak. And this is the reality of it. This is the classroom. And you see it very saddening. And you see it and being told, like I said, science doesn't need to remind you, because we are told through oral history by our ancestors. We are told by oral history by our parents, and it's shared experience that is over time. So once upon a time, we have our coastline 20 meters away from shoreline. After 10 years, it's 5 meters, and so you can see that the images tells itself. There's a king tide, and on the bottom left, it's affected. The water worlds are affected. The salt salinity affecting over thousands of life in the Pacific, and where young people are the most impacted, because 60% of Pacific population are young people. And imagine the impact of climate change in this region. This is the reality of the island life in the Pacific. Kids, when it's a sunny weather, they learn. And this is the COVID during the COVID crisis. You can see their mask sitting 2 meters away from the shoreline, trying to get an education. And of course, with Peace Boat, with climate change, life below water, Pacific island countries, the seeds depend on marine. It's an ocean connected. We are interconnected with the ocean biodiversity. So as you can see, and seeing the impacts, as I've mentioned earlier, with water salinity affecting island communities on Tubet Bay. By the way, I'm from Tubet Bay, southeast of Papua New Guinea, just little north of Australia. So you can see the kids on the left-hand side. They are so happy to see a 5,000 liter tank, 5,000 liters water tank on the left. Because we don't have any, and that was funded through one of the national youth grant that I applied for to assist this community, island community. So you see the impacts. We face the real impacts of climate change, and then we try to adopt. Of course, the Pacific are resilient community, and even seeds, as shared earlier on by my colleagues. So, and awareness and support to young people is very important, to be aware of the issues, to be aware of the context, what is happening. You know, most of this engagement here in COP, and even for the past 26 COPs, the context is at the high level at the policy, but how does this trickle down to the community? As I've mentioned earlier, you don't need science to tell you, but at awareness, what is happening and what needs to be done is very important and critical for young people. That when they're aware, then they can take action. So these are some practical solutions that we are doing, nature-based solutions. Once you're aware of the solutions, and once you're aware of the impacts of climate, then you take practical solutions. So one is nature-based solution, and of course, through awareness at the local context. So we have mangrove planting with youths along the coastline. Wherever I go through the youth advocacy or youth network, we try to make awareness to the young people, even in the Pacific. And I acknowledge those within SEEDS, the small island, they will doing the excellent job in doing so. So yeah, we have to inform. Once informed, we stay informed to take the appropriate actions. And this brings to my end. So I want to say, like, this is a COP event involving international or world leaders here present, and young people's voice matters at this forum. And of course, we need that space. And I couldn't say much than what SOA and Peace Boat have already shared. The youth innovation and creativity is very huge, and it's a potential for partners and even world leaders to tap into, to help them realize the potential, because they are creative, they're innovative, and they are very active in the space of advocacy and actually doing the work. Because I say this from we did a research last month with Restless Development, engaging post-COVID and what young people are doing. We found out from the research that young people are sacrificing their efforts, they're sacrificing their resources, they're going out of their jobs and even using the funds that they have to address the solutions. And you all can agree here with me about the young passion young people have to address these solutions. So there is a huge potential in that. Of course, I mentioned nature and community-based solutions. It's very critical, especially for development partners and any developed country that is trying to offer solutions, of course. We need to be aware of context at the community level. And that is very important. Protecting our ocean as Pacific Islanders, as small island developing states, it's very important. We depend on marine life, as I've mentioned over and over. So we need to protect this. And of course, thank you, SOA and Peace Boat, for doing the tremendous job in raising that advocacy at that international level to protect our oceans. willingness to learn and drive solutions. Young people, we are willing to learn from each other, to share those experiences, not only call upon who is responsible or call for financing, but at the same time, we offer support to counters and help implement those policies here at COP, whatever the outcome statement is, or even at the national level. Young people are at the forefront to offer that support, and they're willing to take on what's reasonable and what's responsible to be done. So, yeah, that brings me to the end of this, and I'm happy to answer any questions. With the Pacific, we have a Pacific demands on the Pacific Island Climate Action Network. You can log into that page and you can sign the demands. It helps us protect and also to raise the voices of young people at such forums, and also to bring it to world leaders that yes, Pacific Island countries, including small island developing states, needs to be represented, and also channel those appropriate resources down to the most vulnerable people, where they can feel. When the vulnerable people feel the impact of this, or whatever it is, the outcome of it, then yes, we can say that yes, we have achieved COP26 objectives. Otherwise, it's just a meeting. Thank you so much for hearing.
Thank you so much, Kim. It is such a pleasure to have you join us here. He was also part of our delegation of youth leaders as we met the First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, the other day. And it's really great to hear that you are also one of the leading youth leaders here at COP26, one of the only, I think, youth leaders, however. So in that case, we need to increase the number of young people from small island developing states at these major conferences and continue to provide them a platform so that we can have more equality and more inclusiveness at these important United Nations spaces. So thank you very much, Kim, for all the effort it takes to get here to COP and for being here. So next we would like to move on to Fiji. We have a guest speaker, our next and final youth representative from the small island developing states, Epeli Lalagavesi from Fiji. If you would like to come up to the front of the stage and share a little bit about your work with everyone, please give him a round of applause.
Firstly, Bula Vinaka, Bula Sia, and warm Pacific greetings to everyone. It is a pleasure to be in this space. Very powerful image shared by Kim about, and that's the Pacific reality, something that we also share in Fiji. In terms of the work that I do, I'm part of Alliance for Future Generation. Alliance for Future Generation Fiji is a young people-led network on sustainable development, working to promote the voices of young people in meaningful engagement and the efforts to build an equitable, fairer, and sustainable future. We have a membership of over 500 young people from diverse backgrounds, including individuals from rural and remote areas in Fiji. And the Alliance has not only worked to influence national and regional policies and processes on oceans and climate change, but also led community actions such as ocean cleanup, ocean stewardships, as you can see, mangrove planting, coral planting in Rotuma, and we recognize the critical importance of oceans for our people, the importance of the moana for our one Solwara. We are one ocean, one people, and we are connected through the ocean. And we share the worldview that we are stewards of the environment, we are stewards of the vanua, of the place that we live in. Alliance for Future Generation also creates safe spaces for intergenerational dialogue, as you can see on the left, or talanoa that was mentioned in the video. And this is where we begin to revisit some of the traditional and cultural knowledge. And we did a series of these before the pandemic, where we recognize the importance of traditional knowledge and wisdom in the efforts to build resilience within the community. Apart from that, Alliance is a huge network in Fiji of young people. I'm also part of the other network, which, the next, which is called the Utonialo. The Utonialo is, in English, is translated as Heart of the Spirit. It is a 72-foot traditional vessel, which is solar powered. We sail to promote sustainable sea transportation and ocean stewardship. So these are all the crew. We visit communities and do cleanup campaigns. And we also get stories, lived realities and experiences of the coastal communities that we visit, such as Narikosa in Kandavu, where they have to face relocation. So these are just some of the work, and we also promote and encourage a lot of women seafarers. We've had an all-female-led voyage, and just a lot of dialogues on oceans and ocean sustainability and environmental sustainability. In terms of the VACA and something that my message with the concept of the VACA is a symbol of hope for the Pacific Islanders. It's a symbol of our voyage, our journey, where we were, where we are, and where we want to go. The concept of the VACA at the stern of it, where you have the uli or the oar, you have elders that are paddling, that are rowing the boat forward, but you have young people that are at the bow of the VACA, and that to me is how we should voyage forward. You should have young people at the front to navigate you. You should have young people that are solution providers to be there to take us forward to the future, because literally they are already doing it in the Pacific, and they're already doing it in the world. They're already providing the solutions. You just need to give them the space. Vinaka vaka levuvu, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining us here today. You know, Peace Boat also visits Fiji, and it's so great to have you as part of our presentation, but we'd love to have you also join us on board the Peace Boat in the future so you can share some of your traditional knowledge and activities from the youth in your region. So thank you for being here, Pali. And with that, I would like to conclude the first part of our youth section. And, you know, the Peace Boat Ocean and Climate Youth Ambassador Program started in 2017. It was endorsed by COP23 officially. And we would like to continue bringing young people to COP in general, but also building networks here that can carry on into the future. And hopefully sometime having a floating COP session for young people who are preparing for this climate change conference, building those networks and strengthening the possibilities of having a more important and positive outcome from each and every COP as we build forward towards this community of young leaders who are working for climate action. So thank you for everyone who's here today. And we have some chairs up here at the front because we're going to continue with our youth leaders and a little bit of an interactive dialogue a bit later. So that is not the last chance that you will hear from them. We will have a little bit of a Q&A and discussion session following our next guest speakers. And I would like to introduce now the Blue Planet Alliance, which is part of our delegation also here at COP, joining us from Hawaii. So also speaking about island nations and states that are really building a future with renewable energy. And so next I would like to invite Leo Rogers from Blue Planet Alliance to the stage.
All right. Thank you, Emily and Peace Boat, for giving us the opportunity to introduce our organization during a special panel. My name is Leo Rogers from Hawaii, and I will be speaking on behalf of Blue Planet Alliance, which is committed to bringing 100% renewable energy mandates. Before I speak, I would like to show you a short video about our sister organization in Hawaii, the Blue Planet Foundation.
Hawaii is our home. But our home is changing.
Breaking news on Kauai tonight, devastating flooding. Widespread damage. Homes on the verge of collapsing.
The world is changing.
The largest wildfires in the state of California.
Tonight, the rain is over, but the disaster is not.
I worry sometimes when I think about my future. What will it be like when I grow up? Would it be like what my parents remember? Climate change scares me. But we know that it doesn't have to be this way. We can change. That's why I'm grateful for Blue Planet Foundation. For the past 10 years, Blue Planet has been leading the way for clean energy. They think if we can do it in Hawaii, we can show the entire world what a clean energy future looks like. They brought together hundreds of students just like me to be a part of the change.
All right, now everybody get your signs. Everybody get together. Make your voice heard. Make your future happen.
They joined their families and neighbors to draw the line on climate change.
Our voices really matter, and us being here today is showing something and showcasing to the world that we really care about this issue and we want to take a stand.
And in 2015, their efforts paid off when Hawaii passed our country's first 100% renewable energy law. It's nice to know when I grow up, all our energy will come from clean sources. And now Blue Planet is growing. The Repower Project is working to bring Hawaii's 100% renewable energy law to other states. Now Blue Planet is active every day, making this change happen. They are in our classrooms and in our communities. We still have a long way to go. We have a lot of work to do. I'm excited about the new future we are creating. We can help solve our climate crisis, starting in Hawaii, and we'll inspire the world. But we can't do it alone. Will you help? For my future.
She's so cute. As you've seen, the Blue Planet Foundation has helped usher Hawaii into a 100% renewable energy state. Our mission is to help the rest of the world in making that commitment, starting with large ocean states around the world. Hawaii, being a remote island in the Pacific, has historically been reliant on fossil fuels to power the economy. Billions of dollars every year literally burnt up into smoke in order to maintain our living standards. This is the case for many island states in the world. In order to pay for this hefty energy consumption, it often leads to having to resort to extracting the natural resources that exist on that land and in the ocean, and therefore destroying nature and its marine life. We will join the people of Palau to help make this transition. Please join us and our partners on the Ocean Conference in Palau in February. We believe that the switch to renewable energies such as wind, solar, which is abundant in these regions, will not just help prevent these emissions that cause climate change to which we are the most susceptible to, but also help to give us the power to prevent the exploitation of the natural resources by allowing the island economy to keep money circulating within the island. We believe this model works and is good for not only the locals, but also for all life on this planet. The task does not come easy, and the answer is never simple, but it cannot be done without a commitment from all of us. We are committed to 100%. Our children and life on this planet don't deserve any less. We are doing this. Thank you.
Hawaii is
Thank you so much, Leo. And that was incredible to hear from Blue Planet Alliance, as they are truly working towards a 100% renewable energy future. And the reason why they're also here today at the AOSIS Pavilion is that we are expecting all of the partners from our SIDS nations that are here today and from youth to work together with Blue Planet Alliance. If you would like to have the solar energy, renewable energy future that they have started with Hawaii by 2045, they're here to support and to provide technology, education, and examples of their mandate. That is really how they achieve that in Hawaii, that they can be an example for everyone, for all the island nations that are here today. So we hope that as we work towards Palau and the Our Ocean Conference in February, this could be a key partner for everyone here. So thank you so much to Blue Planet Alliance and for all the partners that are here, including Amanda as well, who is here as part of the directors of the board from Blue Planet Alliance. Thank you so much. Big round of applause for Leo Rogers. Great, and that brings us next to the panel discussion. So I would like to invite our Ocean and Climate Youth Ambassadors and youth leaders to come up and join us here on the seats that we have for a little bit of a discussion, a little bit of interactive time to hear more about your work. Wonderful. So next, we'll just be having a little bit of a discussion. We're going to start out with a question about basically your networks, because all of you are here from some incredible organizations that you've partnered with. You came to COP either with a delegation or with a network that you have joined. So I'd like to start, maybe we can just begin with Ashnil. If you want to talk a little bit about some of the networks that you have been a part of in Montserrat, and each of you can talk about your own situation, your own country, but what are some of the networks that have benefited you the most as a youth leader?
Okay, thank you. Also, if anybody has any questions, feel free to raise your hand. In terms of networks, I'm a part of so many that I can't remember all of them, but off the top of my head, I have an organization at home called Source Montserrat, and we try to go and work on sustainability and just building capacity in Montserrat, resilience, as I was mentioning. For example, one of our projects is to try to start a farmers market and also to go and increase sustainable farming in Montserrat. The reason why I'm here is because of an organization called Unite for Climate Action, which originally started off as Sail for Climate Action, which was originally Sail to the COP. But long story short, Sail to the COP, a bunch of Europeans tried to sail to COP in Madrid, but in Chile, but then it got moved to Madrid. So they were like halfway through, and then they ended up in Colombia. Then a few of them who were still really passionate already knew that there wasn't enough representation from young people from Latin America and Caribbean. So they actually worked together with a whole bunch of people, and they managed to go and get me and about 30 other youth from Latin America and the Caribbean on a sailing ship from Colombia to Germany in Bonn for the intersessionals, but coronavirus happened. So we started off in Colombia, went up to Bermuda, to Jamaica, Haiti, Bermuda, and then coronavirus. We didn't get to go and do the full journey, but that was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. You ended up learning so much about different islands, different cultures, different realities, different just the way how people are in so many different countries. You really open up your mind to that, not everybody's the same, and the echo chambers that we live in is really an echo chamber because there's so many innovations going on, and that's what I just really appreciate about that. And then now it's Unite for Climate Action, which we tried to go and get to the COP, and we actually made it. So that was really amazing, and I'll just pass it on to my colleagues.
Thank you. Yes, we are here, Kim. I'm Kim again, with the Pacific Islands Climate Action Network, funded through my participation here. We have a Pacific Youth Delegation here from the civil society organization, and it's a strong network that we have with the Pacific Youth Team. And of course, this place, the COP26, is a great avenue to continue the networking and also strengthen those networks. I myself see my role as, because coming from youth CSOs, as a middle person, more of a bridge between such forums and at the national level, and even trickling down to rural communities, how we trickle messages at COP and practically down to local communities, and at the same time as a bridge to raise or bring the messages from the local communities up to the decision-making level. So I see myself that role, and most of the Pacific Youth delegates here, we are in the same page, bringing those messages and sharing. And moving forward is to strengthen these networks and also create more networks here. And we see that forward, especially in the long term, into how to strengthen this and at the same time working in the same space. So there are a variety of networks that we have in the region in Pacific, at the same time on various sectors, the CSO level, at the entrepreneurship level, various sectors, and also various groups of network that we are addressing the same issues cross-sector. Thank you.
Like Kim, I am here under the Pacific Island Climate Action Network. I got to come through the Pacific Island Climate Action Network. Pacific Island Climate Action Network comprises of civil society organizations from 120 countries. There's over 1,100 civil society organizations which is part of the network. And also like Kim, I'm more involved with local communities through the voyages that I do with Utonialo, and just sharing those lived experiences, just putting aside the science of climate change and just getting the stories of people that are affected. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. It's really inspiring to also hear about the networks that you're a part of, because I hope that the youth who are here today can also join those networks and we can build those partnerships with SOA, Blue Planet Alliance, and others so that we can join together and build a stronger coalition of youth leaders. Next, I would like to ask a little bit about what are some of the similarities that you've seen amongst island youth leaders who are here at COP or in other areas that you've seen even in the Ocean and Climate Youth Ambassador Program? What are some of the things that you feel that you share as a commonality?
I'll go. Yeah, in terms of similarities, there's a lot. I mean, once you're from the island, I realize that you're a lot more chiller than the average person. You don't end up taking on things as much usually, and you just end up enjoying life more, just appreciating the small things. Because with Europe and the US and so on, it's a lot of hustle and bustle and busy, and we must meet our targets and whatever. And then is that really the point of life, guys? I mean, you're gonna work yourself to the ground sometimes, and it's like, nah. You can't do that. I mean, and I really try to encourage all my European friends to just chill out sometimes, because either if it's not depression, it's anxiety. If it's not anxiety, it's overworking and getting burnt out and so on. And I got burnt out once in my life, and then I ended up having to play games straight for 3 weeks and to recover, because that is not a good feeling. So, yeah, don't get yourself burnt out, guys. I mean, in terms of but anyway, back on track. In terms of similarities, renewable energy is always going to be a thing. Whether it's we have a lot of wind, or we have a lot of solar, or we have a lot of something, we usually have something good. And then because we're small, we don't need as much as a bigger country. So I think that we serve as a really good testing ground for a lot of new technologies and so on. You could test something innovative and rapid, but at the same time, it's still in a country setting. So you can end up, pushing it forward and getting some real testing stuff. But yeah, I don't want to rant for too long. So.
Thank you. I think at the personal level and at the youth level, where the energy is, there is more collective approach, and we see similarities among young people, the openness to share ideas, especially, and because young people at the same level of, and here it brings that energy together. And so we see that openness to share experience is what we're doing now, and also the creative, how creative and sharing experience, they're so open. And from the Pacific and small island development, it's so open that when you see somebody, you greet him, showing the values of human showing each other, you care for as humans, despite wherever background you come from. We share that human connection as people, and also small island developing states. I want to add that we are interconnected with the nature because there is a tie to ancestral land, there is a tie to science, and there is a tie connection to spirituality, and that brings us together as small island youths from small island development. And we want to share that to developed countries. You don't want to be so caught up in work that you forget that you are human. That we want to share that experience. Thank you.
One of the biggest similarities that I could even see here in COP is a lot of young people are passionate and they're driven to make the change. And it's similar also back at home, where you see young people at the front line addressing climate change, young people at the front line providing solutions. When there's a natural disaster, for instance, you would see young people rushing to the emergency centers to be on standby, to provide standby. And like no one would call them, no one would reach out to them. It's just sort of inbuilt in them to help the people, to help the community. And they're there, they're passionate, they're driven to make the change. So that's one of the biggest similarities. And when you go to outer islands, you see young people, they're helping their community. There's a concept of Sole Solevaki in Fijian, which is basically young people coming together to help the community, whether it be in cleanups, whether it be in mangrove planting and restoration. So this concept of young people just being driven and passionate for change is something that I find really similar among young people. Yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you. And I agree with all of those incredible talents and similarities amongst young people from small island developing states or large ocean nations, sharing so much care for each other and for people and for the nature that surrounds them. So thank you for all of your efforts and for your energy. And another question I wanted to ask is, how do you think that young people, especially from SIDS, have been included or excluded from the global movement and conversations? I think that's something that's very present here at COP, but also in general. Do you have any comments about that?
Yes, I can add on, and you can add on more comments in that. Representation is important, especially to hear young people's voice, because the challenges now we're facing, it's totally different from the past 26 or 25 COPs ago. And every year has its own challenge, and with the climate change, those challenges increase over time. You can't say, oh, the same concept back at home or in your community is the same 10 years ago, because with it comes technology. The challenges come along with the technology advancement. The challenges come along with internet accessibility. The challenges come with when you are trying to degrade an environment for mineral industry. These challenges, they're exacerbated over time, and with COVID-19, it's doubled. For representation and active participation, especially within the SIDS, I think I've seen this and I've observed that we need more small island developing states youth representation at this level, especially to raise these issues, what I've just mentioned earlier, the issues affecting young people, to the global leaders, to the developed country decision makers, and I think we need that. At the same time, to my fellow young people, you need to come prepared, and I think all here, in the sense to be informed of the issues that we are facing, to be informed of the processes, and bring that as more concrete, at the same time discussion, and at the same time offer counter solutions that you as young people, you are capable, you are equipped, you are ready to work with the partners and with the decision makers. Thank you.
The Pacific geographical remoteness is one of the key barriers to effective global youth engagement, with many Pacific Island countries still lacking the type of technology and infrastructure to connect with the world. However, we have those connections, and we are engaging with networks and our partners to push Pacific youth and share their perspectives, share the priorities, and share the demands, challenges, and key opportunities. The Alliance for Future Generation, for instance, has decentralized its movement, and we have our networks app, whether it be based in the central location or it be based in our coastal communities. We're reaching out to these networks to bridge the information gap. We're reaching out to these networks to ensure that the information and the problems or issues that arise from these communities then feed into national, regional, and global processes.
Yeah. For anybody who's new, I'm Ashnil Jeffers from Montserrat in the Caribbean, next to Antigua. And yeah, in terms of representation at these events, I mean, this is my first COP. I don't think Montserrat gets much representation, if at all. And because we're an overseas territory, a British overseas territory, we don't even get our own say at these kind of events. So that's a challenge in its own. And then, I mean, the adults from these bigger, from the other states as well, just get suppressed. I mean, I was just sitting down and I heard leaders from around the Caribbean talk about certain things about, you know, that about the bigger countries and the fact that they're not really listening, you know, and that's if that's happening with them, you know, imagine me. No, you know, I'm an observer on a badge on a shout out to Sentinel Advocacy, but I only met them because of the connections with the other people that I've had, you know, and that really, I want to say it needs to change, but that won't change it, you know. But it does need to go and change. We need to have more people from these small island states to represent, and it's not just to have our voices heard or anything, but it's actually to offer diverse solutions and to challenge the people who think that they know it all, because nobody knows it all, you know. And I mean, even the solutions that they might be looking for, they don't know who's going to actually provide them. And I really, for example, me personally, I feel like I might be able to say something that could go and end up changing things for them. But do I ever get the chance to say something to them? No, I never get the chance to say anything to them. So they'll never know what solutions I have to offer in the first place. And that's why I always talk about an echo chamber and so on. But yeah, I mean, we're doing what we can, and we're working very hard, and we're very glad to be here. But if you can also, you know, if you know anybody who can help and so on, I mean, we always appreciate the help. So.
Yes, I just want to add on to the point where you said, I mean, especially representation and active participation, because there is a difference. And the reason why here, and also tying it back to the first point, as you said, networking. And this space is very important, and I think hearing over time with young people and the representation at the decision making. We need such spaces, and we need those as, like, for example, Peace Boat or SOA, or even the government through its entities. We need support from that, especially to young people, to actively participate in these discussions. Because only when you equip young people at the national level through those processes, especially within SEEDS, then you equip them to be actively engaged and also frame those discussions that will have actively be implemented at the national level, that will trickle down to vulnerable communities. So we need capacity building for young people. We need active resource to support those young people. And networking enables that. I mean, strong networks. At the same time, you provide that avenue and the support. And young people will give you the counter offer, definitely. And I assure you.
I want to add on to what you said, Nose, because that reminds me of something that happened at the COP last week / somewhat this week. So there was an organization that I'm not going to go into the full story because it's not my story, but there was an organization that was being blatantly racist towards one of our members. And basically, to give you a slight rundown, is that they painted the person who was part of our delegation as basically a poor boy from the favelas, which is like Brazilian ghetto. And he never even had a chance to go and actually talk about his own story. So they just went on TV. It was actually one of the biggest TV stations, and basically had some interview with some person in front of some white person in front that's talking about his life, and he never actually even got a chance to go and say. And then afterwards, he didn't even know because it was in a different language than what he speaks. He speaks 4 languages, and it was in a different language. And then it's only till after, like a few seconds after that, somebody who actually understood realized that, hey, this isn't right. And then he managed to go and get his section off and so on. But that was a whole, that hit him hard. You know, I mean, this COP was what he was trying to. He was one of the main organizers to get us here, and then just to go and come here to just experience that. That's real disrespect, you know. But yeah, I mean, after that, I think what I'm getting with all of that is the fact that one, we need to be understanding of these kind of situations and just be sensitive, and 2, we need to also learn how to give up people who are in privileged positions, whether you're black, white, Asian, or whatever. If you're in a privileged position, to be able to also give up your spaces for people who are less privileged. And not just privilege in terms of skin color, but privilege in terms of position as well. Because, for example, one of the demands we had to the group now, because we had to go and do a whole long talk, and man, I've never had something so intense, but we had to have a whole long talk about it, right? And then afterwards, we had to go and demand that 50% of the badges that the organization gets for COP, that it goes towards, you know, colored people, people from AOSIS, and so on, because it wasn't right that about 80 people from country got to go to COP just to go into the stadium to just say, what do we want climate justice, when do we want it now, when you don't even know what climate justice really means, because the thing is that it's a vague term. I mean, any climate justice for me is different from climate justice specifically for you. I mean, we might have similarities, yes, but it's not the exact same thing. So then when you're saying you want climate justice, and then you're the same people who are, you know, giving us the trouble, you know, that's like hypocrisy to the max, you know. And then a good thing that happened actually is that later down, one of the people from the organizations actually gave up a spot on Sky News to one of our other members, and they managed to go and speak on their situation and so on. And I don't know, I mean, it's a thing that we just keep on having to go and build up, but it's just awareness and, you know, giving your space up to other people when you can and helping out the others, you know. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, and that's such an important topic, especially at this COP. Climate justice, equality, inclusivity, and we do hope that, you know, thanks to all of our partners here at the AOSIS Pavilion, which has been very inclusive for so many of our partners from small island developing states, we can continue to put that on the forefront of the next COP and the next COP, and continue to push forward with all these ideas and really make a positive impact and make a change. So thank you for standing up for what's right, for standing up for justice for all, and equality for all. It's really important that we have those voices. One more round of applause for these incredible leaders here on stage. Well, we do want to leave some time for question and answer from the audience as well, but we don't want these young leaders to move just yet. We're going to share one more short presentation. We have a video and a little bit of information about what it's going to take also for our organization, Peace Boat, and others to really make a positive impact with renewable energy for our oceans, sailing, and making a paradigm shift for the entire community that we're sailing to protect. So I just wanted to say that young people really have the power to make a difference, and Peace Boat was originally started by youth. And so I wanted to share the vision of Peace Boat's founder, Yoshioka Tatsuya, who started Peace Boat when he was in university. Maybe we can go to the next slide, please. I'm not sure if we can change it here. But we have a dream that is the continuation of Peace Boat's programs. And as we are putting ocean and climate action on the forefront, we have come up with our next solution for the oceans and climate action, which is Peace Boat's EcoShip. So I introduced Peace Boat earlier, as we're an international organization sailing for the SDGs and climate action. But we also know that we're not doing enough by just sailing and educating around the Sustainable Development Goals. It's kind of what Asnil was saying, you know, if you're going to talk the talk, you also have to walk the walk. Or if you're going to have to sail, you're going to have to sail and make a difference with your ship, with its own vessel. So for us, we have decided to take our actions to the next level. We are creating a ship with solar and wind power and partnering with organizations around the world to make this a reality. Our EcoShip project will be the next vessel of Peace Boat in the future, reducing our CO2 by 40% by using wind and solar power. This vessel will carry with it climate advocates, youth leaders, organizations, indigenous communities, private sector, partners from around the world that will also help us to raise awareness for climate action together. And with it on board, we will also have this natural, beautiful space, biodiversity with the plant kingdom, so that the nature that we're experiencing outside can also be inside the ship. We can learn about those beautiful regions of the world that we visit as we travel. And inside the ship, we also will have a space where we can learn about the renewable energy and the technology on board as an educational activity, measuring the amount of energy that we use, the way that we recycle water on board, and really trying to embody this message. To date, there is no such ship that exists with a model like EcoShip. And we thought, if we are sailing for climate action, how can we build a ship that really embodies that message? So this is our dream to share with you the EcoShip of the future. So please enjoy this short video. Thank you so much. Let's give a round of applause for the EcoShip project and all of our Peace Boat youth leaders. How many of you would like to sail on the EcoShip with us in the future? Why don't we have a cop on board the ship? All right, thank you so much. Well, we look forward to partnering with all of you. This is just the beginning of our partnerships, starting here at COP26, but working towards the United Nations Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development, together with these youth leaders from small island developing states, together with organizations like Blue Planet Alliance and Sustainable Ocean Alliance. We're here to build partnerships. We have just until 2030 to really achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, and oceans and climate are really at the forefront of all of our educational programs and our dream for a better future. So we invite you to join us, be part of our programs. I hope that you will stay a little bit for networking. Our youth leaders will also be here for Q&A. So if you have any questions, feel free to come up to the front. We can have an interactive discussion. And I want to give one more big thank you to the AOSIS Pavilion for sponsoring and supporting this event today, to March for Science and our partners who might be here from all of the organizations that are really putting this together. So one more round of applause for all of you joining today and for everybody watching online. Thank you so much. And with that, I would like to end this first session. And everybody has questions. If you would like to raise your hand, I'll be happy to pass the microphone around. And we'll stay for just a few minutes while we have just these three leaders here, as well as Brandon and our partners from Palau as well. I have Jesse here, and we'll pass the microphone over to you.
Thank you. How do I, is it on? Yeah, all right. So I'll just speak loud. I'll try to speak up for you. First of all, I really enjoyed your discussions and your interventions. It really gives somebody who's been to too many of these things a lot of like hope and a little bit of joy that's sometimes missing in these very technocratic discussions and environment. And I think, well, you know, rock on, just continue your mission. I think it would be interesting if you have some context to provide, because a lot of people don't understand how many of the small island states are kind of trapped by this fossil fuel industry. I mean, for example, I worked on a project in Jamaica, and people were telling me 30% of the household budget was going to electricity, and they couldn't get renewable energy going because of the, let's call it, control of the government by the power provider. And I just wondered if this is something that is very common, and if you had some insights or any stories about that, because I think this is something that needs to get out.
No, continue.
Okay, thank you for the question. And yeah, I can talk from the Caribbean. I can talk from the Caribbean perspective, and yeah, it's not looking good in any of the islands. Well, I'm getting a no-no from my Trinidad friend. Uh, but depends, because for me, for example, in Montserrat, we spend about 21 million Eastern Caribbean dollars per year. So, and our budget is maybe like 100 and something million on fossil fuels. So that isn't that good at all. I didn't actually know about the Jamaica statistics, so thank you for telling me about that. And yeah, I think the fossil fuel industry is pretty scummy in general, to be honest. I mean, they get subsidies, and they don't want to really play fair with renewables anymore. Well, at all. But in terms of actually switching over, I mean, we are trying our best where we can. It's just we don't really get taken all that seriously. I mean, if it's getting funding, then we try. For example, in Montserrat, we were trying to go and get volcanic geothermal power, but then DFID, which is like the UK body to go and help with the islands, they kind of ended up fudging it a bit, and then it never actually worked out in the end. Maybe it was also internal politics, I don't really know. But then it's always such a struggle. I mean, we in Montserrat, we only need 2.5 megawatts of power to power the entire island. Yet we're struggling so hard to go and get to that point. So I don't know if it's a company thing or if it's a political thing, but I'm just trying to do something as well, like trying to see if I can get a project going to go and do it myself as well, because it's tough and it's annoying. It's really annoying, especially as a young person. It's really, really annoying to just see this keep on going on and just perpetuating, and then what do you really do, you know? But yeah, at least we're trying.
Thank you, and that's a very important question, I think, for decision makers to respond to. But from my perspective as young people, of course, we see there is potential for renewable energy in small island developing countries. And from Papua New Guinea, of course, we have, in the Pacific, there is heat, solar energy. But the challenge is mostly the capacity and, of course, the research in there. And, of course, with financing to support this. Of course, you have, speaking of renewable energy, it's been in the national determined, it's in the NDC for a very long time. So you might want to ask the government or the decision makers why. The question is, why are you not implementing the NDCs in terms of renewable energy? That's the question. So you can see that where the resources are or financing, and for developing the seeds, because they're developing countries. And when you come to the negotiation table, it's always tough for them, because you see how if they don't have the resources, if they don't have the capacity, if they don't have the research technology to identify where the potential is, then how will they implement that? So you don't have a choice but to go back to fossil fuels. Now, I'm not supporting that because I call against fossil fuels because it affects thousands of lives. And from the yesterday's discussion with the First Minister for Scotland, she was saying that, Ireland shared experience and shared resource and technology or research. And she was mentioning, of course, Scotland's potential in renewable energy in turbine. Each small island developing states has its own context, and you can see that. And that's where developed countries have to see and share those experiences. Because speaking in reality, right now, the argument is island or siege. We are not contributing to the climate change. It's less than 1%. Of course, the issue is caused by developed countries, but at the same time, we offer solutions at both ends, and that's very important and critical. And young people with this, I have to be straight here. We see history has shown us, innovation has shown us, development has shown us that current CEOs at the decision-making table, they were once upon a time young people who created these multi-billion companies, which shows that they are just like us, creative and innovative when they created these companies. That maybe over time there was a shift because of ill decisions taken by mankind, because of greed or because of pursuit for money or resources. Now, this can be altered, and maybe we hope for in the long term. That's where we are discussing this. And if these decision makers, these CEOs, maybe 2 decades, 3 decades ago, they created these billionaire companies, why not you support the young people here offering solutions, offering renewable energy solutions, And we can always learn from you. It's in intergenerational dialogue. That's the beauty of intergenerational dialogue, learning from the mistakes of the older generation and providing guidance to us that we can always learn from each other so we don't repeat those mistakes done 3 decades ago, done a century ago. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would like to open up the floor then for any next questions. This is a great opportunity with these amazing youth leaders here to ask any questions that you might have from the audience. Mark? Mm-hmm.
I can't believe that COP is almost done. Absolutely crazy. And I just really wanted to know, since oftentimes voices like yours have been excluded from the table here at COP, what have been some of your main takeaways, especially as we near the final outcomes?
Sorry, if you may just repeat for my colleague.
So, 3 of the main takeaways that I have from COP. 1, this has been the most exclusionary COP with civil society voices that are not present in negotiation rooms, and also voices of young people, and in terms of having the voices of those in the frontline communities that face the reality of climate change not being present. The second takeaway would be the inconsistency with the Code Red for Humanity. While we could negotiate the lives of climate change issues, you can't really negotiate the survival of, say, people of the Pacific and small island developing states. It's our lived reality, and for instance, the IPCC report, a recent IPCC report showed that in the Pacific, we have a 12-year window gap. So while we are, most of us here may be privileged to be here present in COP, we need the voices of those communities at the front line of climate change present to tell you that you're negotiating our lives away. And the third takeaway would be, I think last week there was an issue with one of the Pacific delegates where there was, where she was asked, what have you done in terms of climate change? The question should have been, what are large carbon emitting countries doing for us? Not our small actions, while our small actions could help provide solutions. The question should be, what are large emitting countries doing to address the issues of climate change. And it was quite a challenging question for her to be put on the spot about what she does for what she does in terms of climate activism. But just understanding that most of what we do is living the experiences, fighting for our survival on a daily. So those are key takeaways, and also the lack of commitment from governments and world leaders in terms of loss and damage, in terms of key takeaways or key agendas that they address. It's more of promises, but less commitments that are shown in the NDCs, less commitments shown in the COP outcome. So it's the terminologies and the terms that they use, they should be clear definitions in terms of clear definitions in terms of what we want, not text such as we want, we recognize, we welcome these and those changes. It should be clear outline commitments of what they would do. Thank you.
Thank you. Just in addition to my colleague mentioned, we need to shift away from this blaming game between developed and developing states seeds, and to take responsible and accountable concrete actions from these dialogues or following the outcome of this, and as he mentioned, the practical solutions. And in saying that, just to take away, to see, the funding is available. As I mentioned, we've done research collecting voices of young people, especially during this COVID situation. And many have mentioned funding was just made available during pandemic, during COVID, which means developed countries, they have the money, they have the funds. But how do you channel that? How do you channel that to developing states or even seeds or down to the rural areas? Now, I speak from your rural area perspective because these are the most affected communities. And we see that happening. And at the same time, commercializing of these funds, even though it's made available. So we see most of the announcement and the text, as my colleague mentioned, more into commercial companies trying to profit from these funds. And number three is the process to access such funds, especially by small island developing states. How is it made accessible and convenient for the civil society to have access to this so they can practically implement at the community level? And that's my takeaways. And finally, while we acknowledge such dialogues and also your time around this space to listen to us and to channel these points that we've mentioned to the various networks that you have. At the same time, it's young people, because this dialogue is about young people. We want to see that at the same time within the text, and I mean, the capacity building for young people to understand the process, as I've mentioned. Not many have the privilege. If I ask you, I try and ask some young people, especially the students, they don't understand the process, and it's very difficult for them. So in every network that you are, be reminded as a partner, as an international partner, to ask young people whether they understand these processes, because of course you've carried this on for a long time, and you need to introduce them to this process so that they can, based on your experience, based on their observation, they can make consent and informed decision when they take on the role and when you pass on the responsibility.
Okay, thank you. And we have one more question. Do you want to have a comment?
Well, I mean, take away from COP, talk is cheap. And people don't really like to actually act on what they do. They rather make new promises than fulfill their old ones, because that's easier, right? So, yeah, I mean, COP is COP, man. It's my first one, and if it's my last one, it doesn't change anything at all. So I'm just glad to meet people. It's just a networking event, a very expensive networking event. But in the end, it's action that really counts. If you want to act, you act. Talk to me, talk to somebody, But if you don't want to act, then hope you enjoy COP.
Thank you to all of our youth leaders. And we hope that this COP will provide solutions, will provide partnerships and networking. And even in the short time that we've all been here in 2 weeks, I do hope that you've gained something from it and that we can continue to build on that. So I hope that we'll go to the next COP together, Ash, and that we'll keep building on that as well. I did want to say that we have a question from those participants who are tuning in from Zoom. We have a question from Manzel, who's from Palau, and he's asking, in your experience, what is your take on developed countries sometimes exporting their problems to other countries? For example, countries that promote sustainable energy but then export oil and coal to other countries.
I mean, hypocrite pro, but yeah, that's. I mean, what can you really say to those guys? You know, I mean, you say anything to them, and then they'll go and they'll try to backstab you somehow. But yeah, they're not good. They like to do that. What can you really? Maybe I'll come back when you're.
Thank you. You know, as we speak right now, our negotiators are finding it very difficult inside the negotiation room. That's the reality we're speaking here. And to be straight on, you know, we don't want oil. We don't want, but of course we understand the challenges, and it's transitional, and that. But it has to be fast transitional, and it has to be increased. Fast and increased transition between coal. Of course, we can't say, oh, just end cost, because once you do that overnight, there will be blackout. Just like you say to any Pacific or any person that, oh, stop eating meat. Of course, we survive on it. We eat fish. Yeah, you can't do that. So, you know, it comes back to the text and to this negotiation, how we can share the responsibility and transit smoothly, but fast, because our future, the future of young people is at risk. And as we speak and as we discuss, people have been affected. Vulnerable communities have been affected. And the longer you take negotiating and talking, to be straight on, the more they're affected.
I guess my message to them would be simple. While you export oil and your problems away to other countries, especially small island developing countries, the reality is, while you're greedy for money and the economy and for status, the reality is our survival is at risk in the Pacific. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ash, did you want to make one last comment? And then we'll take one more question for the floor before we wrap up this afternoon.
Well, honestly, I don't really have much to say. There's a lot you can say about that. Every country has different realities as well, but yeah, we just need to work harder.
I agree. We do need to work harder. And with that, I would like to congratulate all of our partners here who are working on sustainable energy, renewables, solar, and wind. It's so important for the future, not only of island nations, but also of our planet. So thank you for those of us for making that effort. All right, one last question from the audience. If you'd like to raise your hand if you have a question, this is your chance to have any questions answered here by our youth leaders, and then we'll be wrapping up for this afternoon. Brandon, yes, please go ahead.
Thank you all for sharing your perspectives. This has been illuminating, to say the least. And I'm curious, what is a piece of wisdom that you could share with us, something that is inspiring you or giving you the fuel, the hope to continue doing the work that you're doing?
Oh, okay. Well, one thing I'm really good at is failing. I'm very good at that. I've been failing for many years and quite literally failing. I really love business, but I haven't been good at sticking to any one. So I love online business, but I've pretty much tried all of them and it's kept on failing a bunch. I mean, I'm still failing right now. I'm going to go back home to fail some more. But I've never given up. You know, I've never stopped where, you know, even when I feel depressed or even when my brain is telling me, you know, man, what am I even doing with my life? I could just try to go and get a job, you know, or something like that. But I'm like, but I don't want a job. You know, I want to actually get this to go and work. And years, and managed to go and talk my way into coming all over the place and so on and, you know, get away from all the stress. But it's all good. And I just want people to know that, hey, you know, good things take time. but like if you're working towards something, gets like just keep on working towards. I mean, it's pretty generic advice, I guess, but I just hope that you guys, if you have a project that you're working on, work on it. Don't just just advocate alone, but also take some action. If you like business, then try to work on it. If you have a project, then start writing down some stuff and speaking to people and so on. If somebody steals your idea, that's fine. You have 1,000 more if you just think about it. And you learn, you get experience. I mean, the University of Life is hands down the best university ever. It can be the most expensive, depending as well, but it's by far the best university. And go to other countries and travel and talk to people of different cultures, different skin, different languages, because you end up learning way more than talking to the guy down the street. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. And thank you for that question. It's important. I mean, for me, it's the attitude of gratitude. It's your presence, your listening ears, and even someone's time and resource that is put in here. That's why I'm here to represent my fellow young people. It's that thankfulness, that attitude that you have to appreciate the littlest things, anything at all. Even it's on the negative side or on the positive side, it teaches you different perspectives, and it's how you consume that information that you can tweet whether you accept it or not. Number two is the willingness to learn, as you mentioned, always having that attentive hearing. And what is it that you have to take? Willingness to learn from the elders, willingness to learn from the kids, because they share you totally a different perspective. And that goes to my fellow young people out there. Only when only when you have the attitude to learn, then you will progress over time. Because once, I always think, my dad's mistake, I don't need to repeat it. My uncle's mistake, I don't need to repeat it. I see it, I don't need to read a textbook. Their 50 years experience is just in a 2-minute or in a 1-hour story that they could tell you. The willingness to learn. And number three is the passion to address the issues that affect humanity. If it affects you, or if it affects your kid, then definitely it affects your future, the unborn child. So that keeps you going and drives you to address whatever issues that you face. Thank you.
So one thing that keeps me going or drives me to continue in this space is definitely the people. The Pacific is a very communal environment where in order for us to go on our daily living, we have to interact. We have to be there. And a big example is during COVID, where when people were in isolation, the Pacific suffered in terms of people isolating. We are very communal, but definitely it would have to be for the people. If you do not believe the science in terms of climate change, I would ask you to come and live in the Pacific, come and stay in the Pacific, and be among our people. They're already suffering in terms of poverty. They're already suffering in terms of the daily challenges, and then you have climate change on top of it. And just seeing and witnessing those stories firsthand and just being there would really sort of create or inspire you to continue to be the change. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for joining us here today. Thank you again to the AOSIS Pavilion for hosting this conversation. And one more round of applause for all of our speakers and youth leaders. We hope that you all have received a little bit of hope and that we will continue to work together for a more inclusive COP with climate justice at the forefront of all the issues. So thank you so much to all of our youth for bringing that to the forefront here today. Thank you very much.